Hello, welcome to the Blackout Podcast, where I get to talk to amazing people who do amazing things. I'm here at the Black Buffalo Record headquarters with the man himself, Kevin Beal. Thanks for coming on the show today.
No problem. Thanks for having me on.
And thanks for coming into the beautiful space. I remember the first time I came here, I couldn't get the highs of this, and then I found out that it's an actual real buffalo.
Yeah, it's an actual buffalo head. Picked it up about 15 years ago from an antique store in town here, and yeah, it kind of, I've always wanted to have a mascot for the label, and as soon as I saw it, I had to have it. So I negotiated with the owner. He was asking close to $2,000 or something. I'm like, that's way out of my budget. But so we worked it out, and I actually paid it off over like several weeks or whatever. But I walked out of the store with it that day.
Yeah. Wow. Yeah. Looks great. Again, thanks for welcoming to the space. So let's start, did you have the name before the mascot, or?
Well, actually, we started, the name was called In Vinyl We Trust. So when I started selling records out of my garage over 15 years ago, I needed to have an identity or a label, like just some kind of name. So that's what I came up with. But at that time, social media and Twitter was getting new, and I posted my name on Twitter, and another record company in the States was like, "Oh, that's our name," and they actually sent me they served me a cease and desist.
What?
Yes. So out of all that, they actually paid me some money to stop using the name, and then I was looking for a name, so I chose a name that basically nobody else would have, and that's Black Buffalo, because it has meaning to me. The buffalo is basically my Métis heritage, and black is just kind of sounded good to go with it, and it's a good color, right?
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
So that's how really Black Buffalo came, and then
holy smokes, someone sued you for that name.
Yeah, well, Americans, they love that, right? So.
And then okay, so let's rewind a bit then. With the records, how did that start? Because you're selling out of your garage, but how did you get into selling records?
Well, just being a collector and not knowing when to stop collecting. So yeah, I've always been a collector of music. I remember in the 80s going to the store when I was like 10, 11, 12, buying records. And then that kind of faded out, and cassettes and CDs were prominent, right? But I always go spend my allowance at the record store every week. That's where I would go, right? So that's just the progression. And as I got more disposable income, the collection grew, right?
Yeah.
Right, to the point where it's like you're either going to be a hoarder or you got to kind of get rid of stuff, right? So I was encouraged by my friends to say, you have an empty garage. Why don't you just open it up, do kind of a yard sale thing, and that's really where Black Buffalo got started.
So, you were selling these records because you had a ton, and then people love your sense of music. But let's even go back a bit further. How did you fall in love with music?
I guess I would attribute that to my father and my brother. Just being the younger brother, trying to emulate your older brother. He was into music as well. I didn't really care for his style of music.
What was his style of music?
He was more into the pop, 80s pop, like Duran Duran and that kind of thing. And that's where I was trying to be like him, but not in that sense. I had to have my own identity. That's where I kind of found rap music, right?
Oh, okay.
Because I wanted to. I was going to the music store and with him, like my parents would say, "Oh, you go with your brother, get out of here," kind of thing, right? So we go to the music store, but I wouldn't know what to spend my money on. I'm not going to buy the same thing as him, right? I can't be. I'm not going to we're not going to have the same Duran Duran tape. That'd be ridiculous, right? So I started to just. I think my first tape was like Fat Boys and Run DMC. Before that, I was kind of into like George Michael and Wham and kind of dancey stuff, right? Tears for Fears even, right? But my brother started to buy those same tapes. I'm like, well, again, I I gotta steer away,
Yeah.
right? So, yeah, but it was just my dad played guitar, my brother played guitar. I was taking saxophone lessons, and so there's always
nice.
kind of a musical thing. I took piano lessons at that age too, but that really wasn't hip hop, right? Saxophone and piano, like.
Right.
Oh,
He likes attention.
this is one of our
What's his name?
fur babies. This is Blackie.
Well,
Making a cameo, making sure everything is good.
yeah. So, you fell in love with music, started buying records, opened a store, got sued, almost got sued. You pretty much got a letter saying, do not, or this will happen. And then you changed the name to Black Buffalo Records. Let's start with that name though. How long did you got this letter, how long did it take you to get this name change done?
Oh, it didn't take that long at all. I was kind of, I don't know, like, I didn't really believe it was happening. Like, we were kind of talking over Twitter at the time, like, change your name. No, I'm not going to change your name, blah, blah, blah. And then it died down for a couple months. And then I was at work, and a guy was tapping on my window, and he's like, I'm serving you papers. I'm like, oh, it was just out of the blue. I just got served papers, right? And then I started looking, and I called them up, and in a matter of like a month, it was resolved, right? So, and then I just changed my name, and at that time, I was also involved with a group of people that were opening up a co-op store called Plan B, and that was my first adventure into having a full retail space.
Okay.
Right. So that was all happening at the same time, but yeah, it didn't really faze me too much. It kind of gave me the motivation that, if I'm pissing somebody off, I'm doing something right. Right?
Yeah. So Plan B, that's like you went from your garage to Plan B selling the records there?
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was a co-op. It was a bunch of small, like not even independent, more like micro businesses. Some were like people that would go to a flea market and sell their wares, like crafters and other antique people. So we all got together and shared rent on the space, right? And that's how we could all kind of afford
that place,
and grow.
Yeah.
And that's where Black Buffalo really started to grow. We got exposure from different communities, and the community that we were in kind of embraced us as well. As soon as we opened up, there were a lot of the hip hop community and DJs were coming in and buying records, and that's when I started to get to know that community and grow into where we are now.
Yeah. So, you're selling records, you're not a record label. No. When did that transformation and evolution happen?
That happened about 5-7 years into the store by hosting record store day parties and hosting anniversary parties. I would always invite in the hip hop community DJs to play. Myself, I'm a DJ kind of. Growing up in hip hop, you always try to, or for me, you kind of align to one of the four elements, right? Either you're a rapper, a graffiti artist, breakdancer, or a DJ, right? So me collecting music and stuff, I was more of a DJ. And even in high school, like I played around and always had turntables. I would bring my turntables to parties and set up and play. So I always was that kind of DJ. So when I had a chance in my own space to invite that community in, that was more than happy to do that. It made my 14-year-old self kind of proud. You know what I mean? It's like,
yeah.
So, and we just started growing relationships from there. DJ Moose would come in, and he had a whole crew of people. Joe Run would come in, he'd do some spinning. Even like Scratch Bastard stopped by at a time, right? So it was really cool to see the embrace anytime we open up the store. And we're also open up the store to the indie rock scene as well. So we were getting to know a lot of that scene as well. And it was just good to mingle with the Halifax music scene. Right?
And then Halifax has this super rich music scene. But like, at what point were you got introduced to these DJs coming to play at the record store? But at what point were you like, okay, we could actually put out music?
Well, the Joe Run kind of came up with that idea. He approached me and said he had a couple songs, and why don't we give it a go? And I took that offer and ran with it, and we're now looking at number 37 and 38 coming off the pipeline pretty quick.
Damn,
right?
damn, that is amazing. But like, what experience did you have with, it's one thing to sell records, it's another thing to have artists get music done, distribute it. Like, but what skill set did you have that helped you with that transition?
That's a good question. I think just being organized and having the drive and ambition to do it, I guess, is the best I can describe. I went to university and got a Bachelor of Commerce, but I don't really think that education had much to do with it. I always wanted to own my own business. I've had other kind of entrepreneurial aspirations before, and this is just kind of an evolution of my collection and a passion that kind of just built, right? And I think it was just more of my passion that really kind of has put us in this position. Right?
And then what else, like the process exactly of putting out that first record?
The first record we put out it wasn't actually a pressed record. It's what they call a lathe record, which is basically a needle being etched into a piece of plastic.
Okay.
And the sound quality is not as good, but back in the 70s, they used to call those dub plates, and DJs would play dub plates, and they would only have a...
You know what? This is the first time, like, I grew up in Nigeria, and I grew up with reggae music.
Yes.
And you always hear dub plate.
Yeah.
And I never knew what it meant till this moment.
Right. It's basically a really lo-fi version of a record where it's a needle in a groove, and depending on the plastic or the material that it's cut into, it would disintegrate over time, or you only get a certain number of plays out of it before you would start to really not be able to do it, right?
So it's like one step down from like a record.
Yeah, it's a do-it-yourself way of putting out your record, right? And when you don't have access to a pressing plant, like in those countries that you're referring to, where reggae was predominant, that's you got to get the record out, right? Yeah. So
now I know what dub plate means. Thanks for that. Like, okay, well, so that's
how we started, and it sold well, and the reception was well, and I just kept on reinvesting the money. I have a full-time job. I'm not in for any kind of profit or anything. Again, it's more passion, right? So for me, just to put out more records, that's rewarding for me. I'm not looking to get a huge payday. I just want to have a huge catalog of records out there. So that's where.
Like, how long between the very first one and the second one? Was there a huge gap before this next one came out?
No, we started in 2016.
Oh wow! Okay,
right?
So
you can kind of do the math.
Yeah, like, so what? That's 5 years or something. So that's like 7 or so a year.
Well, in the first year we only did 2 records, and then the next year I think we did 4, and then the next year we did like 12, and then the next year we're up to 24.
So were these like each different artist, or did you have artists like have 1 or 2 come out?
Yeah, so in our first 5 releases was Joe Run, Crypto Rips, which is a punk band, Skinny Lee, which was a blues artist, and Word Burglar, which is another hip hop artist. Right, those were all in the first 2 years, kind of thing. And then as we started to get a name for ourselves, more people were starting to send us demos and wanted to work with us. And then one of the local rappers, Ghetto Sox, reached out to us and said he had a project with a new up-and-comer aquaculture, right? So that was the first time we did Hollows together, and that ended up winning a Nova Scotia Music Award, right? So that success also gave me more drive to put out. Before then, we were only putting out 7-inch singles, basically, and that was our first full-length album that did very well, and that opened doors to do more full-length, and we saw that was very rewarding, being part of that process, right, from the ground to seeing the receiving an award.
Yeah, you know, one thing I kind of noticed is like with you is like, okay, I'm doing this, and then once you figure it out, you just add another piece, and then you keep adding pieces and moving on. But like with the artists themselves, though, how do you? I mean, so some would reach out. But like, how do you choose who you bring into Black Buffalo?
It's if I like the music, is basically just if I or my partner Kumud, if she starts dancing to a song, I know it's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
Right? But yeah, it's basically our if we like it. There's some demos that I got. It's just no, that's not really what we're looking for, or not really in what I like, and I just kind of passed on it. And those are pretty much the hardest. It's hard to say no, right? So especially when somebody is worked so hard on a project and is looking in it. So I try not to say no, but sometimes it's just not the right fit. So like we haven't put out a punk record since our second release, right? We haven't really done much other than hip hop, R&B, soul, that kind of thing since our early days. And it seems to that family that we have grown is just like I said, it's just a family. We bring in some new faces, and we get along, and there's some cross collaboration happening, which is again, it's nice to see that the label and everybody on it is getting along, right?
Yeah. So and that was the thing. Like, you have all these artists coming, and then they make their stuff, and then this artist likes the other artist stuff, and then they jump on their record. So it's kind of having this roster of really talented people that love working with each other.
Yep.
Here's the thing, though. You're working with an artist. Is it like, when it comes to Black Buffalo, do you say, okay, we're doing this for 3 albums, or you know?
Yeah. Up until this point, it's just been each release. We just negotiate.
Oh man, that's dope. That is great. That is great, because
we don't want to kind of stifle or kind of damper anybody. It's just like, okay, this is the release we like. We'll work on it, and you're free to work with anybody else or any other label. But you know, just if you like us, come back to us.
Yeah.
Right?
Why did you take that approach, though?
Maybe a bit being naive and not really knowing what to do. To be quite honest, I have no experience in the music industry. I'm not a musician. I have never been in the industry, so to speak. So I just I approach it in a different sense, I guess. Maybe it's just, like I say, maybe just because I'm naive, but that's just the way I approach business in general. Right? I just, projects kind of piecemeal, that I just like to focus on that one thing. I don't want to get into too long of a relationship or complicate things too much. Keep it simple and move on.
Yeah.
So
no, that's great, because like, you know, I know as an artist, we are working on this thing. Whatever comes out of that will determine if we go on.
Right.
And like, but from just, you know, going to the catalog, there are people that have 2, 3. So, you know, the relationship isn't good because they come back to sign for this one project, working it. How do you keep that relationship going now?
Just being upfront and honest, and being transparent with where I am in the schedule. So we're very busy now. So some artists that will send me a project, I'd be like, I can't put this out this year. It's going to be next year. If you're okay with that, we can move forward. But if not, you know, I don't want to sit on that project. It's your art. Get it out there, right? So again, just being open and honest. And I think we also have a lot of the artists are close to my age. We have it's a similar generation. Right, we are bridging the gap to a younger generation with Paolo and Lavender and a few other artists I'm working with. But we all kind of grew up in the same '90s hip hop era and have the same appreciation for the kind of the same music. So we have a lot of similarities, and we bond over that too. Right, so.
Yo, that sounds great. So it's like you have this actual relationship. The music is just another layer on top.
Yeah.
But like, okay, you know, different record labels have different approaches to this. The artist comes in, you sign this is this project we're working on. Yeah. Then, you know, the artist goes, records 6, 7, whatever songs. Who like decides the final things are songs that are going to be on the final product?
That's usually the artist. There's only been a few times where we had to cut songs, and that's just because there's no space on the record. So you're only allowed, or maximum, about 20, 22 minutes on a record. And some projects, they'll come in at 60 minutes, right? So 30 minutes aside, you can't do it. So you got to cut a couple songs.
Oh.
Right? So,
so 22, so about 40
40,
minutes
44
or
minutes is your max on a record. And if your project exceeds that, then something's got to drop if you want to have it on vinyl. And for a lot of the artists, and the reason why they're playing with Black Buffalo is because we produce a physical product. And vinyl is kind of like the high standard in having your art made.
Yeah.
Right? So everybody wants that. So most people are willing to...
I mean, 44 minutes to
Right.
get a vinyl.
So-
that is something
So
that...
I don't cut the songs, though. I ask the artist, which ones do you are willing to not have on the record? You know, so I don't do that. I don't,
man,
right?
that's
So
too nice.
I don't,
I'm like, no, this one, fuck up. Okay.
like I have projects that I'm working on myself where I am making those decisions. So I'm getting involved with DJ Moves, and we're collaborating on making beats, and we're sending them out to artists and stuff. So I have some of that. No, I don't like that, and yes, I can go with that on those types of projects.
Yeah.
But on other things where I'm not
You're
involved
like,
in, I don't have the. I can't say it. I don't want to.
Respect. Okay, so the other thing you just mentioned now was that, like, if someone reached out to you, be like, "Oh man, your project is great, but it's coming out next year or something." How do you decide the lifespan? Like, like the marketing like, how do you plan it out?
Up until this point, we haven't really been doing a very good job at that. I'll be honest. We're just getting more organized with that now. So up until this point, I just kind of been flying by the seat of my pants, identifying whenever the record is ready. That's kind of when I will identify the release date. I work with the artist to see if they want to have a release party, that kind of thing, if they have a video planned. But we're getting more organized. We've actually hired an intern communication student to help us get more organized. We are taking the business, I guess, to the next level, and going to incorporate the business and start hiring more larger staff because we have too many projects on the go right now. Like right now, it's April, and I've already committed to 24 projects.
God damn it!
Right.
This is insane. I can't. What?
Yeah.
I thought you were gonna say 2 projects. I'm like 24.
I just updated the my database here before you came, and it's 24 projects I committed to, and I got 8 projects as demos that I'm working, like developing. Right. So that's like 30 projects right now. Probably 6 or 7 of them will come out this year, but like next year's schedule's already we're going into 2023.
Yeah.
Right. So,
yeah. Holy shoot. Wow.
Yeah, and COVID doesn't help the production, right? So usually a turnaround on a record is about 8 to 10 weeks, which is, you can manage that. That's like 2 months. Okay, we can, but now it's extended out to about 4 months.
Oh.
All right, and so it's really hard to plan any kind of release, and even then you'll get a date, and then it'll get pushed another week because, you know, even I was looking on the TV today, and Ontario's got new restrictions. So
Right.
So anything in the warehouse kind of comes out of Ontario. That's where the records are.
It's gonna wait till.
So we've already had that impact in back in December, where we had products sitting in Toronto for like 6 weeks, just sitting there waiting to get packaged and sent to us, but nobody was there. Right.
So, but like, how about you mentioned COVID, right? That was most of last year. Apart from the whole 6-week thing, what are some other impacts that had on Black Buffalo Records?
It's actually had a positive impact. Last year was a really good year for us for sales, and I believe it's because everybody was at home on their computers, not going out to shows, but still wanted to support artists. And the only way you can really support is by buying product. And I think that's where we benefited. We had a really good year last year, and again, that's why we're being so ambitious this year, right? Because like I said, I don't take money. I'm not looking for profit, so I just, all that success we had last year, just dumped it back in and put more projects out.
Yeah, it's like you create this thing, it makes some money, and then you take all that and put it back. It's great. It's great. It's great. I'm gonna steal that idea. Here's one question for you. I know you love records and stuff, and you had the record store, now the record label. CDs came, years ago.
Yeah.
Cassettes, records went away. But then, in just the last couple of years, records came back. What do you think happened?
So that's when I started selling out of my garage, and that was kind of the start of the resurgence of this vinyl resurgence, if you will. I don't really know where it came back. I think it's just this cool factor. The indie kids kind of picked it up. I think it was at a certain point where some people of a bit, maybe 10 years older than me at that time, were introducing records to their kids for the first time. So there was so my generation that kind of grew up with records, they went away, but there's a nostalgia thing that started to happen around 2010 or so. And then Record Store Day, the group Record Store Day kind of started putting the shine on that, and I think that really drove a lot of the frenzy that we see now. The collectors were always there. For me to acquire that many records to sell out of my basement, there was a network. There was always there, but it was just underground, right? So my friends and I would travel up to Moncton to a record fair there in the early 2000s, and that's where I would buy a lot of my records. And that record community was kind of started back early 80s with the owner of Taz Records, Bob Switzer, right? And he kind of started that whole collecting community in Halifax and in the Maritimes back in the 80s, and it was always kind of strong. The DJ culture kept it kind of pushing in the 90s and 2000s. They were always playing vinyl. But here in the Maritimes, collecting records was always, there was always a community doing it, right? And that was another thing that kind of helped the success of Black Buffalo, was that we organized a Halifax record fair early on too. Starting in 2011, my best friend Phil McDonald and I, we booked the forum. We got a few tables together of our records and a few of our friends that we knew, and we had the Halifax Record Fair, and we had over 800 people show up that day.
Nice,
right?
nice.
So, and then we knew that we were onto something.
Yeah.
Right. So, COVID, getting back to that whole COVID, that was one of the things that impacted, was that we were not able to have our record fairs on a regular basis, and that really kind of that hurt us. That's where the passion for me is collecting records and buying records. So that record fair was a special event, and not being able to have it kind of.
Here's the thing, though. I was just thinking, when someone goes to get a record, do they already know what they're gonna get? Because you can't listen to, I don't know, can you listen to the thing when you're at the store? Or?
Well, that's what we had a listening booth, right? We always had a play copy, right? So if anybody wanted to hear it before, we had that.
Okay.
But generally, you can hear it on Spotify or stream it. A lot of people will listen to it digitally before coming in. I'm not that way. I like to hear it first on vinyl. Just a preference, but So a lot of people, though, collect records today for the color variants too. They're not really buying it for the audio quality. They're buying it for the aesthetics. And we have our inspector back again.
Yeah. The other thing is records are expensive.
Yeah.
And then the pieces you need to create where you listen to is also expensive. So, but people, why do you think that even with that expense, people are still attuned to getting records and listening to music that way?
It's a physical experience. It kind of, you get immersed into the record when you pick it up, you look at it, you have the artwork. You don't have that same experience when you're streaming on digital, right? It's either on a device that you're not looking at,
Right.
or it's out of sight, out of mind. It's more of a radio interaction than when you have a personal, when you physically went out, spent your money on something, you have an expectation, right? You have a connection right there because you made that purchase. When you're on digital as well, you're not exchanging anything,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah.
there's a whole interaction about going and buying it from a person, going home, listening to it. So I think that's, humans just want some interaction with things, you know?
Yeah,
So it has intrinsic value.
We are social beings.
Right.
We're social beings. So I was like, okay, came in, and your house is full of records. But then I found out that this is actually where the Tiny concert was made.
Yeah.
I'm like, of course, right? Because the Buffalo was there. So let's talk about the Tiny concert a bit. What made you decide to come up with that concept, and how did you set it up? What was the process of getting it all together?
Just wanted to celebrate Black Buffalo in a way. I wanted to get some exposure on YouTube. Wanted to set up the Black Buffalo channel. Just thought of a way, came up with an idea to try to get as many video filming hits as I could at one time. So I've always been a fan of the NPR Tiny Desk. So I was watching that one day and the light bulb went off. I was like, well, I could do that here.
Yeah.
Right. I know all these artists. The space is nice, have access to the equipment. So yeah, I just organized it, reached out to the artists to see who wanted to perform, and the response was good. So we filmed it over a course of a couple weeks, and we edited the videos and released them over the series of 2 months or something.
Yeah, it was dope. I loved it. Love Lavender's one, Aquaculture's one. So you have Aquaculture and Ghetto Socks and Aqua Socks.
Yeah.
Right. So they are
and there's also a Bleeding Gums. So Aquaculture teamed up with Fester, and they put out a project called Bleeding Gums, and that did very well as well. And they're performing that live next month for the first time. So that's going to be exciting. To see.
I heard Aquaculture is like, I don't know. I think since he had the baby, he's just been in a different plane.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, he's always been great. One of his songs, Safe, I actually took it and I made it into a play.
Okay.
But Legacy is just like a sick album.
Yeah.
And then he still has capacity to work with all these people. Yeah. And then he's also working on his projects. But when you have an artist that is so multi-pronged like this, how do you handle that? Because you're pretty much working with one person, but on 3 or 4 projects.
Yeah, and when it comes to aquaculture, again, it's just project-based. So Fester actually came and pitched the Bleeding Gums, right? That was more on Fester to come to us and say, hey, he's got a project, features Lance. We've put out projects with Lance before, aquaculture. So it's just kind of project by project. So when Aquaculture had Legacy, I actually approached him and said, who's putting out your record? We're open, that kind of thing. So, and with Hollows and Aqua Socks, that was more on Ghetto Socks coming, right? So each project has a different approach and a different angle. We don't. We haven't really signed an artist to the label. Every artist is still an independent artist.
Yeah,
right?
It's just the project, not the artist.
Yeah.
I guess when you're mentioning all these things, it just hit me that it's just you and your partner Kumud. That's it.
Yep.
How do you two make it work? Because that's a lot of things for 2 people to handle.
We just make it work. I guess we both have the passion. Kumud, she has a special skill set that I don't have with being able to communicate on a personal level with some people. I don't have sometimes those people skills, right? So I sometimes call it good cop and bad cop, right? But she also has a passion for music. It's more of a family. So when you get to know these people as a person, you wanna do good for them. You want to do your best for them, right? You don't want to let them down, right? So,
you talked about Kumud's taste, and she introduced me to Sampati Great, and I've been listening to these artists all the while. One thing though, at the end of the day, artists are still human beings, right? And like human beings have good sides and bad sides. And, do you ever have to, I guess, manage when an artist is not living up to expectations or doing things that's distracting them from the music?
There's always going to be times when you step on toes or you butt heads, but it's how you come out and how you figure out how to get beyond that. And sometimes we have had differences or problems that we can't get beyond, and we just go our separate ways. And that has come around recently. But we no hard feelings. We just kind of move on, right? So, and again, that's when you're dealing with this many people and passions run so deep. People fall out sometimes, and relationships break down, and that's just the way things go, right? You can't really, you can't control everything. You just can control what you can, and you move on. So it's the unfortunate side and the ugly side of things, but it comes with the good, right? You got to take the good with the bad.
True. I'm just learning so much from you. Cassettes. Why did you decide to so vinyl I get, but cassettes, why was it important
I could never buy records as all my favorite hip hop that I bought growing up was on cassette. Because vinyl was hip hop vinyl or hip hop records. You couldn't find them. It was very hard unless you went to the bigger cities like Montreal or Toronto. There was a store here, I forget the name of the store, but the owner's name was Delroy. He always had the best imported cassettes. He had a few 12-inch hip hop records, but just really not a very good strong selection. The selection was strong for cassettes. And I would go there and cassettes was just everybody had a boom box. You walked around with your boom box, you put your tape in, and that was the culture back in the late 80s, early 90s. Everybody was making mix tapes and trading tapes, right? So that's where I grew up, and for me, hip hop is on a cassette. Right? That's right. It's nice to have it on record, and that's it. But for me, I was always experienced it on tape, and I've always will support it.
Yeah, I mean, I was like, okay, so at the end of the day, Black Buffalo Record is all about records, right? So I said, can you talk me through some? So this is what, Channel Halifax?
Yeah, this is one of our first. This was our first project with Word Burglar. This was number 4, I think. Yep. Word Burglar reached out to me. He wanted to use this store as in his video for this China Halifax. I was like, yeah, okay, let's do that. And then struck up a conversation with him, and we decided to put it out on record. So this was one of our first 7 inches that we've ever put out. A color variant on orange. It's also available in blue and black.
Wait, how did it, I'm used to records being a certain color. Does the color change affect it in any way, or?
Some of the pure audiophiles think that the color doesn't have as good a sound, or the vinyl deteriorates when you scratch. But a lot of that is the technology today has improved to where that doesn't really matter anymore. The wax that they use for color wax is better than they did back in. So a lot of those rumors or misconceptions came out of the shitty quality vinyl that came out of the late 70s and early 80s, where they're trying to make records thinner because of the oil embargo and stuff. And just the quality and production back then was not as good as it is now. And so color variants are more sought after for collectors these days, just because of the collectability, the rareness of them, and the audio is still comparable to a black record.
Yeah. So again, like I said, so you have this whole thing where you work with one artist on just a project, and then they're like, "Oh, that was great." This is another word burglar one.
Yeah, another word burglar. This is number 13.
Yeah.
Further down the line, and again, yeah, these records came off one of his albums. I forget which one. This one featured Esoteric, which I was familiar with, a fan of, and as soon as I heard the song, I'm like, yep, that was good. And then the B-side had featured Mega Ran and Kool Keith, and I've always been a fan of Kool Keith. So again, another no-brainer. Couple good tracks, great artwork. It sold very well for us, and yeah, it's
Abu Dhabi is on Holos, right?
Yes, this was we dropped this 7-inch before the record. This was the first. Yeah, they just at this point they only had a couple songs ready. The project wasn't fully developed.
Do you do this like for most of the artists that come out, or you just wait to get the full record out?
Yeah, well, it's whatever is submitted at the time, and at this point, we were so, I guess, eager to get out new product. It was just like, let's just keep the engine going, right? And so we had this. I really enjoyed the song. I wanted to start supporting and getting, the light on aquaculture, and also just starting to work with Ghetto Socks, and just seeing, again, it was more of a, how's this relationship going to go? Let's put this out, and then we can talk further. And then it went well, and got an award up there behind your back there. So, yeah.
And then Moves, of course, with Smiggity Smoke.
Yeah, this was the first project I did with Moose. Released a 7-inch Smiggity Smoke, and on the backside is Nightlife featuring Fat Matt. Again, a song that I can really relate to. Smoking cannabis all the time for a very long time. So again, it was just another kind of see how this goes. So all these kind of 7 inches have now led to bigger projects like the full length Fat Matt, right?
Yeah,
so again, we did well with the Smiggity Smoke, and just moved on to bigger projects. And we just dropped this in February.
Yeah.
It's now up on Spotify this week, so you can stream it, and it's all on all digital platforms. But really good to get to know Fat Matt through this process. We didn't know Fat Matt before, and just getting to know him as a person and his story, it's been really rewarding putting out the product, and one of my favorite records of this year so far.
Oh, wow. Wow. How do you, when it comes to the artwork, right, is that on you, on Black Buffalo, or on the artist?
It's on the artist. Okay. And most of these artists, you can see some of the similarity in artwork. A lot of these guys like to deal with the same graphic artist. So the graphic artist that did both of these goes by the name of Rec, and he's from. So DJ Moose and Fat Matt, they all come from a crew called Low Pressure Fried Chicken, LPFC.
Low Pressure Fried Chicken, okay.
Right, and these guys all met out in East Van, and really bonded out there. Made some really dope music out there. Rec was basically their graffiti artist. So anytime they needed artwork, they would go to him, and those loyalties still run strong. So every Moves project I have, Rec is doing the artwork. Right?
Pretty much, okay. I hope I'm getting this right. Stoneham, right?
Stoneham, yeah. Formerly goes by the name of Royce Birth. So this was kind of a reinvention for him. He a really strong project. We put out a project with him and Fortunato last year called Blood, Sweat, and Tears Part 2, where he went under the name of Royce Birth. But he just now going through a bit of a change. Just another strong project, very uplifting, really good for this time with COVID and everything. All the songs on here about overcoming obstacles.
The Good Fight,
right?
Redemption, Second Wind. Yeah. Really.
Very, very inspiring record.
Yeah.
And that's the reason why I wanted to put out. It was sometimes when you listen to hip hop, it's always about the same kind of, drugs and sex and crime and, all the cliche kind of thing. Or it's the conscious kind of political stuff. And when I heard Stoneham, this was just more kind of positive, refreshing. It just hit me in a different way, and I'm like, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah,
so,
this is number 32 from BBR.
Yeah, that came out just before Fat Matt in January, but unfortunately with COVID and artists not being able to get out and kind of tour and
shows,
pour,
yeah.
a lot of these are kind of sitting on the shelf until we can start to get together again, and hopefully when that happens, we'll...
Yeah, I mean, we, at least here in Halifax, Nova Scotia, as a whole, we are doing good because we kind of have some shows. We had like something at the Marquee. What are they calling the Derby now?
Yeah, so that has some significance with the black community in Halifax. The Derby was the bar, predominantly the black bar on Godgen Street.
Oh.
And it moved locations and shut down. So I think they're trying to give some some homage and call it the Derby.
Yeah. Right? Man, I need to just be texting you when I have all these questions because you have the answers now. I know what dub plate is. I know what the Derby is. Okay, like I'm having so much fun. I'm sure, like I'm taking too much of your time.
No, this is great.
I'm gonna end it with this question though. So you have a day job. You're doing this thing with Kumud. Just the two of you for years and years now. And it's not even about the money, because all the money just goes back into making more of this. How do you keep that passion going though? Like, does this just come down to the music?
Well, Kumud and I don't have any kids, so I think Black Buffalo is our kid, if you will. It's our child. So if we didn't do that, we'd be staring at each other and doing nothing. So we got to keep active. We got to do something, and we enjoy being involved in the community. We enjoy the artists that we deal with, right? So it goes beyond label and artist. It's more of a friendship. So we enjoy getting out and seeing these people, right? So it's like if we weren't doing this, we'd be sitting watching TV. So that's not much fun.
Oh man, this has been great. Thank you so much, Kevin.
Thank you.
And I can't wait for what is coming up from Black Buffalo next.
Yeah, no, the really busy year. Keep your eye out on us. We have releases coming out with Tichichi. It's going to be a really big release. We have a project with a DJ out of Chicago called DJ M-Rock. It's a really strong release. We have a Hip Club Groove reissue coming out. That's a lot of anticipation for that. A lot of people looking forward to that. And like I said, we have probably another 6-7 other projects that I'm just going to keep under wraps for now. But check out all the social medias. I mentioned earlier we have hired a communication intern, so it's not just the two of us anymore. It's 3 of us. I should probably say 4 of us, because Ghetto Socks helps a lot with artwork and a lot of guidance. So he's a key player on the team as well. Yeah. Just keep watching us. We're on all the social medias. We'll be hitting you with a lot of hot music.
Thank you so much, Kevin.
Thank you.